Hi, it's Ted with Willow Way Nurseries, Avon, Ohio. Wanted to talk a little bit about stuff that's still looking really nice in the nursery. This is a perennial hibiscus, Starry Night. It's Plants at Work program line. But as you can see behind me, really beautiful, large flowers, give you a lot of color. They just really stand out. This pink really stands out against this chocolate kind of foliage. These plants, we do PGR them. They will get taller in like a landscape setting. So expect them to be a little bit bigger. I mean, you're about 4 foot they'll get to. Really nice, long blooms. These things started blooming mid-summer here, or later summer, I guess I should say, August, and all the way through August, September. You know, we'll go in, they're still got flower buds on them. So we're still got more to show on these. So they'll be really nice, and then they die back down to the ground in the winter. And then in spring, all you do is cut them back and they come back up again. You have foliage through the spring and early summer, and then you get to this point where you got the flowers as kind of a reward for a great season. So it's something you should consider. We have many varieties, lots of colors, different shades of pinks, reds. There's even some whites out there, so great color. All right, come over to Durvilla Ruby Wren. This is it's American Beauties, native. So great plant for part of that program throughout the year. Putting natives back out into the landscape. One of the nice things is it gets this nice petite yellow flower. You can see on there long bloom times on Durvilla. The other thing is this nice foliage, very clean, nice with the red tips on the new growth fading to the green. Nice size, its compactness, easy to trim, low maintenance. Also, disease and insects are less of a problem. It can get a little leaf spot, but that's more for like overhead water, things like that, where you're going to see more of that particular fungal problem. So really easy to care for in the landscape and grow. So a great choice. We have a bunch of Durvilla on the farm here, and we're always seeing pollinators on these plants as well. So it's a great pollinator plant. Hi, we're back again. Talk a little bit more about kind of fall planting. With evergreens, it's really important, whether it's a juniper, arborvitae, boxwood, which is a broadleaf evergreen, holly, ilex, anything that holds on to it basically stays green throughout the year. It's really important in fall to do two things. One is to water, make sure they have adequate water going into winter. That's different for different plants. Junipers are on a little bit, they don't like to be swampy or really wet, but they do like moisture. Best to water at the base of these evergreens, not over the top this time of year. Boxwood's another one, doesn't like to be swamped out, but will take moisture and holds it up. What happens is in the winter burn happens over time, and you don't notice it in the fall, but a lot of times that's when the problems start, because once the ground freezes, they have no way to get additional moisture. And so all they have is the reserves of what they have in their roots and in the plant itself. So it's really critical that you give them enough so they're hydrated very well going into winter. Just like if you were doing an athletic event, that you're hydrated going into it. If you're already dehydrated before you start, it's going to be hard to be competitive all the way through. And that's kind of what happens with winter burn, is by the time you hit March, when the weather starts to change, things start going, the day length gets a little bit warmer, we get a little bit more, that's when all of a sudden you start to see this burn happen, and you're like, what's going on? And you find out that the plant's dry. You can water it and sometimes bring it out if you catch it early enough, but it happens very quickly in that early part of the spring, and that's because the plant's completely dehydrated. It's used up all its water reserves basically. So it usually starts in the tips and works its way back in, often from like the top or the most exposed area where it gets the most sunlight, most wind. Wind is an enhancer. The more wind the plant's exposed to, the more winter burn you see and the quicker it happens. So it's really important to make sure you get the plants hydrated in the fall. And that really goes for a lot of your plants, but you do need to understand how much water. We have like oak leaf hydrangeas. If we really water them heavily, they will rot, the roots will rot out in the winter, but we do need to have moisture there, otherwise they won't survive the winter well. On the other hand, you can have a plant like Nepeta. Nepeta, if it's established, you can water it really heavily, loves water. Roses love water. They'll all do really well, even though they go fully dormant. So Important to really make sure you're managing moisture in the fall. Hi, we moved over to talk a little bit about fall foliage. It's a program we'll away here where in the regular growing season we feel the plants aren't quite up to where we want them to be, but as fall kind of comes along and plants are kind of going down, we relax our quality standard on some plants. That's not to mean that we allow any plants to have diseases or insects go out, but this is a good example where you can see the leaves have a little bit of damage on the tips of the leaves where they're just scratched up. It's more seasonal, and so we want to have these available. This particular is columnar hornbeam, 1 3/4 inches. It's a nice crop. We have them available, but in the summertime we would not allow this crop to go out. But for this fall foliage, knowing that we're going to get the leaf drop coming, we're putting them back on our availability. Talk about growing degree days. Last week when we talked, we were at 2,700 growing degree days. Right now we're at 3,000, so we went up about 300. We've had a really hot dry spell here at Avon in Ohio, so that's kind of driven a lot of this temperature. We've still had some days in the 70s into the 80s even this last week, and we've had nighttime temperatures in the mid 50s to upper 50s. So we're still accumulating degree days going along here. So that looks like it's going to change. We have a front coming in this afternoon, and it looks like we're going to get some rain here for a couple days, chances at least. So all this next week. So that's really important because we've almost been 3 weeks now without rain. So real critical for this time of year. Fall is a great time to plant. Now we want to start looking at our plants. Planting in fall in September and even early October, and even a little bit later depending on what it is. The plants have a chance to establish. The soil moisture generally is higher, so, and the cooler temperatures kind of help with the acclimation of the plants, growing roots until the ground's frozen. So this is a great time to still look at plants and put them out there. If it's a marginally hardy plant, then you may want to get that in sooner than later or consider spring planting that. You can look up some of that information, but a vast majority of the plants we sell are still great to plant in the fall.